Hey guys, Joe DeMarco from the Crazy New York Driver Show. Today I have something different for you. I'm going to review the movie The 7-Ups from the perspective of a local resident. I'm going to show you all the interesting things you really don't get to see in the movie. I'm going to show you the actual filming locations in some cases. I'm going to also show you some continuity errors. I'm going to show you some impossible things that they were able to pull off. And hopefully, if you're a fan of this movie like I am, you're going to find this review very interesting. So that being said, let's get started right now. The movie was released in 1973 and starred Roy Scheider, who you can see on the screen there as Buddy. He was the lead detective in an elite squad called the 7-Ups, and that group was primarily interested in convicting high-end criminals who would get at least 7 or more years in prison. The co-star is Tony LoBianco right there. He plays the Undertaker in the scene, and he also is actually working both sides of the fence. He's a connected guy, but he also gives information to Buddy, and they have a little mutual understanding together. In one of the first outdoor scenes, you can see Roy Scheider here walking underneath the Triborough Bridge. It's now called the RFK Bridge. And he's going to a meeting with the Undertaker. As Roy Scheider approaches the Undertaker, if you look to the right, you can see the Undertaker's Pontiac station wagon parked in the background. This is very important because in a few screens I'm going to show you my car parked there in the year 1989 when I did a photo shoot. So you get the feeling now how this area looked in 1973 and 1974. Let's now jump to 1989 when I first visited the scene to do a photo shoot. I shouldn't say 89 was the first time I was ever there. I was there as a little kid. I used to play around here and go exploring with my friends in the late 70s. But let me show you 1989 now. Here is my car. At the time I was driving a 77 Cadillac. And you might not quite recognize the scene from this shot, but you'll definitely recognize it from the next shot. Right here. Right over here is where the Undertaker had his Pontiac station wagon parked, and the two of them walked to the right behind this concrete pillar, and they had their discussion. You may also notice in this 1989 picture classic trolley poles. Sadly, this area does not look like this anymore. In fact, believe it or not, on November 23rd, 2025, I attempted to get back in here to this area to do another photo shoot, and let me show you what I saw. As you can see, it's totally fenced off to the public by a double fence. Fence number 1 here, which borders the Harlem River Drive, I got in through a hole and worked my way around here, but there's no way to get in here. They're doing some massive reconstruction project. I noticed that they had actually excavated and removed a lot of the original soil. I'm not sure why. I think they might be strengthening the area because the area did become undermined from the water, from the Harlem River, in some places. So that's something to be considered. Let's move on to another scene from the movie that I think you guys will all recognize. Let's move on to the next interesting outdoor scene. Here you can see they are leaving the Lucia Brothers funeral home, and the procession for the Cotello funeral is starting. Please notice that it's a normal New York City weather day, meaning it's cloudy, it's cold, and there's obvious snow on the ground. Typical New York murky weather. All right, we're pulling out from the funeral home. There's all the snow I mentioned. The roads are wet. The sky is gray. And the procession is starting. This officer right here is Mingo, and he's going to play a part in this particular clip. Here you see the procession on Pelham Parkway, and yep, it's still cloudy, obvious snow on the ground, and the roads are wet. Here is Pelham Parkway a little bit further up, puddles of water, bleak sky. Now Mingo, the police officer, pulls his car onto the center divider after not seeing Ansel in the procession. You can clearly see that he's running through puddles of water and the ground is saturated. Now look at this. Mingo has just radioed Roy Scheider and the other detective that Ansel is missing. And look at this. The sun is out and the road is dry. Obviously, this was filmed on a different day. Here you can see the Pontiac with Cotello driving it, right behind them. Again, the Pontiac is coming to the corner now, and you can see the roads are totally dry. The sun is brilliantly out. It's a real nice day. Very little snow, if any. And look at this. In the next scene, Roy Scheider and his partner are giving chase to the Pontiac, but there's not an ounce of snow. The roads are bone dry. The sun is out. And guess what? They're not on Pelham Parkway anymore. Now they're on Marshalloo Parkway. This building right here is called the Tracy Towers, which is a very well-known and tall building in the North Bronx. Trust me, I passed it a million times. I know what I'm talking about. But I wanted you to see this section was filmed over at least 2 different days. Let's continue. As Roy Scheider continues to follow the Pontiac, we have yet another location jump. This is supposed to be in the Bronx, but it's not. This car wash is actually located on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. But of course they figured nobody would notice that. If you have any doubts, look right on top of the Pontiac. You can see the word Atlantic right here. And then what I think might be his furniture company, I'm not sure. But Atlantic for sure. Trust me, this is Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. You now see the Pontiac entering the car wash on Atlantic Avenue. After it comes out of the car wash, the 2 crooks have taken it over, and you can see them driving it out of the car wash across the street into a nondescript garage. Now, we know this is located in Brooklyn, but nobody else knows this, right? Please notice the building itself is totally brown brick, look, and there's a small sign here that has the parking rates. But, let's check this. When Roy and his partner go to investigate, the building is now a 2-tone, white and black color. What happened to the other building? Well, I can answer that. This particular location has once again jumped to downtown on the west side. That's where they are right now. Here you can see they're leaning against the door trying to get in, and you can clearly see that in the original shot there was a parking sign here, and this was all brown instead of 2-tone. So we are now on the west side of Manhattan. All of a sudden, after they shoot the policeman who was in the trunk of the car, Detective Ansel, they take off, the 2 crooks do, in the Pontiac, and begin to tear through the streets of Manhattan. We are now going to start the part of the video that I think most of you guys were looking forward to from the very beginning, and that is the anatomy of the chase scene. The 2 cars have just left the parking garage downtown and have turned northbound onto 10th Avenue. This particular chase scene is filmed from several different angles, including the angle of Roy Scheider's car, as well as the angle of the 2 crooks in the Pontiac you see right there. and also from standing cameras on the side of various locations. So I'm going to show you now what I think is the best chase in history. And the fact that it was recorded right here in New York City makes it all the more sweeter. So as you can see, everybody's heading northbound right now on 10th Avenue. Northbound would be heading uptown. Here you can see from the perspective of the Crooks car that Roy Scheider is coming up behind them very quickly. From another angle, you can see the Crooks have gained momentum in their Pontiac. And as a very weird coincidence, off topic but weird, until recently we used to have our meetings right here, 10th Avenue and 50th Street at the Columbus Branch Public Library. So yeah, weird coincidences can happen. We're continuing up 10th Avenue now, and as you can see, traffic is getting more congested. We're about to turn onto a street, West 78th Street, which was called a school street. School streets were popular in the 70s. I don't know if they have them anymore, but they would block off a street so that at lunchtime the kids could come out and play. Of course, the Crooks are going to turn onto this street, and Roy Scheider is going to pursue them onto this street. Here you can see the two Crooks in their Pontiac smashing the wooden barricade, turning onto West 78th, right in the path of the children. I watched a documentary on how this section was filmed, and believe it or not, the kids were never in the way of any of the cars. It was done with some fancy editing. Here you can see the Crooks have now turned onto West End Avenue. And what's really amazing about this shot is look in the background. You can actually see some local New Yorkers standing around to watch the chase. This is something you don't get to see as a rule. Normal civilians in the background watching a chase. If you freeze frame the movie, when Roy's car comes around this corner, you can actually see a uniformed policeman working crowd control. Now, as you can see, the Crooks have turned yet again, and they're heading westbound, and they're heading down to Riverside Drive. Roy is right behind them, full speed, totally off the ground. I don't know how they managed to film this in this particular congested area, but they sure pulled it off. Now, the Crooks have reached Riverside Drive and are turning north. Here's where a lot of crazy things begin to happen. First of all, take a look at this patrol car. It's from the fictitious 86th precinct. There never was an 86th precinct in Manhattan. Supposedly, this car was doing traffic duty, saw the Crooks drive by and hit the front door off the Opel Kadett, and are now going to give chase. And here comes Roy, but he loses control, and instead of facing northbound the way the Crooks went, he's facing southbound. And something I want to point out here, and I've noticed this on many TV shows and movies. One of the TV shows that comes to mind is Adam 12. Look at all the skid marks right here. This shows that the scene was practiced many times before they actually got it right. Many times they tried this scene, they finally got it right to their satisfaction. This is the entrance right here to the Henry Hudson Parkway or West Side Highway, and you can also see, look, civilians standing in the background here, right on the entrance to the highway. Try driving down here today. You'll never see civilians out here. Roy finally gets his car turned around the right way, and he's going to join the chase. You can see the civilians are still here watching everything. Roy now continues northbound on Riverside Drive. And the chase is now on going up Riverside Drive. That's Roy Scheider, that's the marked patrol car, and up ahead is the Pontiac. Here is one of the most unlikely scenes of the entire movie. Here Roy Scheider is talking into his portable radio and he says, "Car 86, they just shot a cop. They're heading for the bridge. Close it off." And in the next scene, you can see the police officer on his radio saying, "Roger, got it. We'll close it off." However, back then it was impossible for Roy Scheider's handheld detective's radio to be on the same frequency as that as a police car. I'm not even sure they can do that today. But it's one of those things that used to make me shake my head in disbelief. Continuing north, there's a lot to see in the next few scenes. You can tell that this scene is being filmed by a handheld camera because this particular screen is slightly blurry. Look, here's the Pontiac. Here's the police car that's chasing it. And there's somebody else in this scene that really wasn't supposed to be there. Can anybody see them? See this guy? See this group here? This is actually a film crew that is filming this scene from the opposite angle. Let's call this film crew number 1. We'll get a better look at them in a second. Okay, the Pontiac has continued. The police car is getting closer. There's your film crew filming the opposite angle, which I'll show you in a minute or two. Now here's Roy. Roy Scheider's car is coming over. All three cars are going so fast they cross the double yellow line. And again, there's film crew number 1. Okay, another scene. By the way, this location is Riverside Drive, a little south of 125th Street, right by Grant's tomb. That's where this particular film crew is. Now, from the opposite angle, this is being filmed by the crew that I just showed you. Here's the Pontiac shooting by. Here comes the police car shooting by. And look who we have in the background. Handheld film crew number 2. They were catching the original scenes that I just showed you. And here comes Roy's car. There you can see your film crew number 2. This is one thing that always amazed me. I'm not sure if you guys ever caught this, but I thought you'd really enjoy this particular screen. Now up here, we're approaching the bridge, and the Pontiac is ramming the police car and trying to take it out of action. And it succeeds in doing so. Roy Scheider is now pursuing the Pontiac alone. Now, this is the way it looked in 1973. You can see right here there's a sign for the George Washington Bridge. I decided to photograph this area the other day, and I'm going to include a current screenshot right now. But before I even do that, I want to tell you that the scenes that are coming up next are physically impossible to have happened. Meaning, what I'm saying is, the way the chase was going here, this leads directly to the bridge. After I show you the updated screenshot, I will show you that they completely changed the filming location to West 179th Street. Unbelievable, but true. Let's look at how this area looks today. This is the way this exact location looks today. In some ways it's quite different. In some ways it's similar. I took this picture on a rare sunny Sunday, November 2025. Now, let's jump back to the way it looked back in the day in the movie. And you can see right here, some things are the same, some things are different. Continuing on, as I said, this leads directly to the George Washington Bridge. But in the next scene, watch what happens. Now, somehow, through the magic of the movies, they're on 179th Street, approach to the George Washington Bridge. It's actually inconceivable that this chase could have gone this way. But I guess they wanted it this way for cinematic effect. So let's continue seeing what happens. Here you can see the Pontiac crashing through the barricade, going across Fort Washington Avenue onto the George Washington Bridge. In this scene, you can see a couple of important things. Number one, once again, they claim to be from the 86th Precinct. Now, in the scene I showed you earlier, that was down by 77th and Riverside, the car said 86th Precinct. There is no way one precinct in New York City would run from 77th all the way up to 179th. You're passing the confines of at least 3 or 4 different precincts. In addition, there never was an 86th precinct in New York, and you can see the lettering doesn't match the lettering on the car, the wear. See, it's brand new. I think this is a movie car, or maybe an old defrocked police car that they used. Also, on the right side here, it appears to me like some vehicles are blocking access to Fort Washington Avenue so that they could shoot this scene. They're going across the bridge here, no problem there. Going across the bridge, heading westbound into New Jersey. Here the Pontiac has taken the ramp to the Palisades Parkway in Fort Lee. But what do you think's going to happen? Look where it is now. It magically has appeared on the Taconic State Parkway, which is up, way, way up in Westchester, almost into Orange. I mean, this is a huge, huge change of location. Next, you see it's passing a tour bus. Buses are not allowed on the Palisades Parkway, nor are they allowed on the Taconic Parkway. Also, another major gaffe is that this bus says right here, New York City, when in reality, the bus is heading away from New York City. This is supposed to be the destination. Now they're still heading up the Taconic, and they're smashing into each other back and forth. You can see right here they use that old-fashioned metal guardrail, and this highway is a very dangerous highway even today. It's got a lot of sharp curves. I was up there years ago, and it's somewhat better than it was back in the 70s, but still. Now, Taconic Parkway once again, and they're coming to the exit for New York Route 100 to Briarcliff Manor. I want to show you how far away this spot is from where they started out supposedly in Fort Lee, getting off the George Washington Bridge. Now look, right down here is Fort Lee. Here's your bridge. All right, you following me? Okay, now they're supposed to take the Palisades Parkway out. Okay, easy enough. But somehow, now look, they wound up all the way up here, okay, in this area. All the way up here. I guess they just felt it was a better filming location. Now, in this shot, can anybody look at this picture and tell me 2 interesting things here? This is the Taconic State Parkway. I'll tell you the answers. Number 1, no tractor trailers are allowed on the Taconic State Parkway. No trucks of any kind. There is no reason on God's green earth for this tractor trailer to have been parked on the shoulder of the exit ramp here. But yet, there it is. Secondly, for those of you guys who've been paying attention, I showed you earlier in the video where Roy Scheider's Pontiac skidded around getting onto Riverside Drive, and I showed you the skid marks that were there from some practice sessions. Take a look, guys, right here. Practice sessions of skid marks from when it was going to hit the tractor trailer. I hope you guys are paying attention. I'm going to be asking questions when this video is over. Now let's take a look at the exciting climax of this movie, the gunfight. Here you can see a taxi cab is pulling on to what looks like a non-paved dirt road in the North Bronx. In the taxi cab is the garage guy that we saw earlier from the garage scene. Again, here's the taxi cab passing by. You'll notice this whole area is undeveloped. The road ends here. It does not go through. The buildings are dilapidated and in disrepair. This is the way it actually looked in 1973. I was there. I was a kid. In this scene, these are the two crooks that are following the garage guy because they want to whack him because he knows too much. You'll notice, oddly enough, that their Chevy has New Jersey license plates. Not sure why they did that, but this car does appear several times in the video, and it always does have New Jersey license plates. This old warehouse right here was knocked down by the time I got to visit this scene in the mid-1970s. Here you can see one of the thugs is walking over to, hopefully in his mind, meet the garage guy and end him. You can see there's a dumpster here where they were knocking down one of these buildings and loading junk in it. You can see the street does not go through in 1973. This was the end of it. Boy, you're going to have no idea how this place changed when I show you. Here's actor and stunt driver Bill Hickman in the shootout scene. Behind him on the other side of the tracks is a basic junkyard for truck bodies and old ice machines. I vividly remember all this. Over here on the right is the New England Thruway. I'll talk about that in a minute. In this scene, you can see the other bad guy is in the middle of what looks like a real dumping ground. All this is gone today. It looks absolutely nothing like this. The only thing that's still this way, the tracks are there, and this is there. This is a view from the other side, the truck bodies and ice machines that I showed you earlier. Over here is where the shootout just occurred. On the right is a building that's no longer there. Here you can see Roy Scheider running across the railroad tracks to confront the gunman. And once again, this old building here had something to do with the railroad. I vaguely remember it as a kid, but I never explored all the way in here. But I will show you where I did explore shortly. There's the gunman. He's run across, and he's going to try and hide in one of the old truck bodies. This is the New England Thruway that I mentioned earlier. This section, this viaduct, was totally reconstructed in the late 1980s. And I mean reconstructed. They basically chopped out everything and added all new material. Here, you can see Roy Scheider hiding behind the ice machine, looking for the gunman. Here you can see a derelict 1962 Chevy, and there's your New England Thruway. And I vividly remember this was a dumping ground for cars. One day when I was about 15 years old, I walked under the New England Thruway, and I saw a Lincoln Mark IV, totally intact. It had just been stolen. They drove it over one of the dirt mounds, so you couldn't see it from the road. I climbed over the dirt mound just to look, and I saw the Lincoln. Only thing wrong with it, it was missing its hubcaps, and they had opened the trunk, and they had taken out luggage, apparently the owner's luggage, and gone through it, and there were clothes laying all over the place. And I remember getting this very eerie, desolate feeling over here. I said, I better get out of here. Even though I'm only a kid, the cops may think I stole a car. So yeah, now let's take a look at what this area looks like today. First, let me show you how to get there, if you ever wanted to. This is I-95, the New England Thruway. Continue north. This is the ramp to the Hutchinson Parkway. Bear right, where it says Palmer Avenue. get down here, bear right again, come around here, like this. Now right here is where I showed you the picture of the Chevrolet with the New Jersey plates. He was driving in here, right? Look. And I believe the shootout was right here in front of this particular house. Okay? This house is still here today. But if you remember from what I showed you earlier, this street did not go through. It has been punched through since then. But also something else very weird, to be honest with you. Back then, the road was not located here. Okay? The road was actually shifted. It was right about here. They actually moved it a few feet, believe it or not. Because as I said, there was a lot of junk, garbage, and debris. And they came in and they cleared all that out. The truck bodies I showed you earlier would have been right here on this side of the railroad tracks where the 1962 Chevy was. Here is where that brick building would have been for the railroad. I have no idea what purpose that was for. So as you can see, it's been totally developed since 1973. Now let me give you a better look. All right? Again, the Chevrolet came this way, turned here. Here's where I took the screenshot. They drove a little further in. Bang, bang, bang. Shootout right here. All right? This was the dead end. They couldn't go any further. The Crook and Roy Scheider ran across the tracks here. And the final gunfight was, I guess, right about here where you can't see. The stolen Lincoln Mark IV I told you about when I was 15 would be right underneath the viaduct here, which was a dumping ground for hot cars and everything else too. Over here is where that warehouse would have been that I showed you at the very beginning, the one I said had been knocked down. Okay guys, this concludes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed my evaluation of the 7-Ups because it is still one of my favorite New York City movies, if not my very favorite. The chase is definitely my all-time favorite chase ever. If you guys have any requests for filming locations in New York City only, please, or any location New York City videos, put them in the comment section, and if I can get to them, I will. We're getting into the winter time now, and this is the time that I really do go out and make these videos because I like to film them once all the foliage has died off. It's a lot better that way, and it's a lot easier. Please also comment on any of the points that I showed you in the video. If there's anything that caught your eye or that you never noticed, or maybe that you had noticed, or that you found very, very enlightening, please comment that. Remember, I'm Crazy New York Driver, and you're not. I love making these historical New York City videos, and let me tell you something, guys. I've been doing these New York City videos since 2007, and I can honestly tell you that this was the most tedious and labor-intensive video I have ever made, and I sure hope it was worth it. Thank you for watching. Rock on and peace.